So Seeds of Hope and Healing is a 501c3 that I began after I got back from my last trip in India. I was getting invitations to return to Thailand and India. And what I have been doing and what I did was to teach trauma care to groups of people. And by that, part of what I mean is I teach other people how to help people with their trauma. It's a whole lot better to teach you how to help people, and then you can help 4 or 5 people here, than it is for me to try to help you and 3 of these people, but I also gives the power for this work back to people. So we're going to go quickly through the slides, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about where we are and what we're doing. Can I have the next slide? This is in Thailand, and it was in a refugee camp. The people there, some of them have been there for generations, but they have fled over the border from Burma, Myanmar, to escape the military government there. I take that back. This is India, okay? And I just realized that. If you look at the little boy with his hand up by his ear, he sort of attached himself to me during this week. His father had just died, and his mother has 3 children to raise by herself. This particular church is in Delhi, and it is spread out all over the city. And what they do when they have a training like this is they go and they, part of what they do is, and part of what I helped them do, was pay for people's transportation to come in. So they help them come in for worship, and they help them come in for trainings. Next slide. You know me, I have a thing for little babies. And this young lady came to play with my computer with me. Next slide. This is from the earthquake. The earthquake that hit Myanmar in the middle of this war. We all remember when it hit. And this is part of the result from that. And that grew and exacerbated the trauma that these folks are dealing with. The ones in the refugee camps who have family back in Thailand, of course, their stuff's going up. There's additional trauma inside country. Next slide. I was at a gathering of people who had recently come over the river from Burma into Thailand, and this was a group of about 100, 150 people who had been gathered together by one of our sponsors to come and find some time for joy. And they had invited me to speak briefly during that time. Mostly they sang a lot. Please. This young mother had come by herself with her child. The people that we are trying to reach with aid to deal with their trauma and training to help them deal, helping others, are only a couple of steps away from the trauma that they are dealing with. And so the people in this group and in this picture were in a temporary shelter before a refugee camp. It was a sort of a halfway house that had about 50 to 75 of them who had come in for this gathering. Okay? So this young man, I took his picture not because I wanted you to see me boxing, but because he's 14. His family fled Burma into Thailand because he was at the age where the government in Burma is scooping kids off the road into forced military conscription. That's why he escaped. And I have this picture to remind me of what we're really dealing with. The level of pain and suffering and need. Please. Just to remind you, the Thailand, where I was when this picture was taken, is a Buddhist country. You have to be careful what you do. And this is part of a temple. This is part of the My La refugee camp. It was my first view of it as we drove past it. It was on my left. We were traveling down the road to the entrance. These young men are recent refugees. They are being housed in a church that has opened itself to them, but they had invited me to come talk to them about the work I was doing and about briefly some thoughts about trauma. And these young men, young lady, a couple of young women in there, were all being housed by this church. Remember, please, these folks are like 7 to 10 days away from wading the river. It's another one of the houses at the refugee camp. This family is the family of a woman named Tansy. Tansy is on my board of directors and is a volunteer. She is Karen, which is one of the ethnic groups in Burma. She lives here in the United States and is working on her PhD. The woman in the printed dress is her sister. They had just escaped, and they were in the process of building a house for them at the refugee camp. And Tansy had asked me to carry a laptop to her sister so that her sister could find some way perhaps to earn some money utilizing the laptop and doing translation. When I got to India, the person who met me in Mizoram is a young man named Chung Pi. Chung Pi is a doctor. He was scheduled to come here to Johns Hopkins to study public health, and the war broke out. And Chung Pi wound up with a price on his head. I had met him when I first went in 2019. Yeah, 2019. And we had become friends. We had kept in touch. We had walked together through some difficult times for him. At one point, with the price on his head and the problems he was having, he began to feel suicidal. And as there was no reason to go on living, and he and I spent time online and on phone connection working through that. He is one of the doctors at the Victoria Hospital in Shinland right now. This is one of the refugee camps outside the airport in Mizoram. It's one of the smaller refugee camps, but the government is putting the squeeze on them, saying that they cannot grow any of their own food. And some of you may have seen, I don't have the picture in here, but you may have seen a big feast set out on banana leaves. You may have seen me, I sent that picture back at one point. This is the refugee camp that put that feast together. This is one of the teachers in that refugee camp who built the school behind us, and the government has forced them to close it down. Please. This is one of the children in that refugee camp. Many of the people in these camps are parents with children who do not have fathers with them. fathers are on the run from being conscripted, or are fighting in one of the various armed militias against the junta. These folks are mental health personnel for one of the organizations that is trying to set up mobile medical services. I got asked to do a training for them in trauma to equip them to be better able to help the folks that they meet. We had 50 people in this room and another 75 online on a Zoom call for this training. This is why I'm going to Zimbabwe. What? So I got an invitation to go to Zimbabwe. I went to happened to be at the Alliance of Baptist yearly meeting and was introduced to the new principal of the theological school there, and he asked me to come and teach. I'd originally planned that I was going to go back to India this year. But what happened was, the gentleman standing right next to me is an American citizen who is also a Chin. He is head of the Chin Churches of America. He's executive director. Unbeknownst to us, a bunch of us showed up at the same time in India, in Mizoram. He didn't know I was coming. I didn't know he was coming. We all happened to wind up at the same meeting. But what happened was, suddenly there are 5 or 6 Americans in Mizoram, where all the refugee camps are on the India side of the border, asking about the refugee camps. And the India Intelligence Agency had a moment. And so when I started planning to go back, they said to me, maybe you ought to wait until 2026. It'll be safer for you. So when I was asked to go to Zimbabwe, I knew that I had a blank spot in the time that I had allotted, and so there. Please. Even while we're not traveling to places, we had the opportunity during the recent flooding on the India side to aid some of the refugee camps with rice, and made a donation of rice to, I believe, 7 of the camps. And they sent me a series of these pictures. I posted one of them for you. Again, the needs we're facing and that people are struggling with are dire. This is one of the places that has, just across the border from India in Burma, been bombed by the junta. The war continues there. And often it gets very close. At one point, when I was teaching in Thailand at one of the seminaries there, we could hear the bombs across the river being dropped. This is one of my favorite pictures. All of these are young men who are in a halfway house for patients who have lost limbs or need some sort of surgery. The young man to my left in the red shirt has no right hand. He shook my hand when we met with the stub of his arm. He'd gotten used to that. And they're all, because they can't stay in the hospital all this time, they're waiting for their prosthetic devices to arrive. So that's what Seeds of Hope and Healing does. is it goes into these areas and it tries to help people, one, find a way to deal with their trauma that is based in Scripture, because most of these people are Christians. And what they don't speak is they don't speak Western thinking models. And what I found is if we can use Scripture together, it's possible to come up with a rich and full way of teaching people to deal with trauma and teaching them to help others with theirs. So that's the end of my presentation. That's a quick, down and dirty look at Seeds of Hope and Healing. Hopefully when I say down and dirty, you think of planting. And thank you for staying around to see this. I will see you next week. If you have any questions for me, feel free. Grab me, ask, email me, text me, send a carrier pigeon. Huh? When I go to Zimbabwe, I leave here the 17th. I'll be gone for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Yes, ma'am. Okay, thank you.